But it's now time to talk about the sexual violation that Stephane and Unixmad have signed off on and allowed and are absolutely behind. They allowed it. They created teams of child sexual predators and communities that were sexually abusing children, and they never did anything about it. In fact, they preyed on those kids who were being sexually violated in the community knowingly. They allowed it. And then Stephane and Unixmad joined in to harass and steal from those kids while they are being sexually harassed and violated by adults, including Stephane and Unixmad's own managers, quote unquote managers. I don't wake up every day thinking, oh wow, let me expose more people in Graal, especially when most of the community is purposefully advertised to children, which is, again, something that us original game creators never intended. And I would like to speak very much on a most important part of what has happened to us victims in the Graal community, especially us creators who made the games which Stephane and Unixmad and Vangel and Gallon helped completely stole. And there was also Time, if you remember Time, I think his name's spelled Tyhm. He's supposedly like the greatest admin. He was, first and foremost, Time didn't really do anything. He had no business being on these servers. Like all of these games and the content that was already made was there before Time ever freaking had any quote unquote position of management. And when he became a quote unquote manager, he took over levels and creations that were made by children, that were made by minors, that were never purchased, that were never transferred by a parental signature, that were never transferred by the signature of the child, that was never transferred by an adult. These were stolen by grown international child predator adults, and Time was absolutely in on it. Time knew our age, and he would cyberbully us, and he would molest our content by vandalizing it, by claiming he owned it, criticizing it. He would add perverted stuff and weird commentary about our personalities, spreading all kinds of disgusting rumors about the children in the community. And his content was also quite garbage, in my opinion. I don't even know why he was, quote unquote, in a position of management, other than the fact that he was a total pervert and a piece of shit, just like everybody else. So Time went out and started doing all kinds of weird, crazy stuff to our content, even though he knew full well that it wasn't purchased. He knew that there were laws in place, and if he didn't, he should have known. You don't start setting yourself up over content that's not being paid for, made by children, and start thinking to yourself, there's nothing weird about that. I can just take other people's children's content, and there's nothing weird about that. Like, obviously, Time is a freaking creep. And if you look back at the stuff that he did, it was really stupid, too. Like, as far as I recall, and I usually have a pretty good memory about these things, but don't quote me on it. I believe it was Time who added like the burger joint and the bank, the Graal bank in Graal City. He also added like a choo-choo train. There was a weird like train in the middle of this medieval game. He started adding all kinds of weird stuff to my content. And so, I really think it's important that you guys understand that this is just the iceberg of them overstepping our boundaries, even though they were completely inept, and none of the stuff that they were creating has anything to do with any continuity. There's no reason for them to be doing this, right? Because none of the content that they're making has anything to do with what any of us were making. What does a giant choo-choo train and a modern bank and a burger joint have to do with Destiny, which he was molesting? That was a part of what they stole and shoved on Graal Classic and called it theirs. What does that have to do with this overworld that was, a Mod Podge quilt of content that was created by all kinds of people? Time had no business being in charge of anything. Now, when I say that, he has no business being there, I think it's very obvious just from a creative standpoint, he really wasn't fit for the job, but he was glorified because he bashed the child creators that they were robbing, and he had no problem messing with other people's stuff. The one thing that Time did know how to do was he knew how to program. And because he was good at programming, they allowed him to do whatever he wanted because they knew they could trust him to violate and take advantage of the kids there. So I want to get to the real reason for this podcast, which is that I specifically remember back in the day when Time was messing with my content. Him and a bunch of people were constantly bad-mouthing me. Like, they stole Destiny, and you can see in my former videos that I had made Destiny and I started quitting. I need to go. And some of what I never actually touched on because it was so traumatic is the reasons why I was quitting wasn't just because I was robbed. There was also a lot of sexual abuse. At the time, my computer, when I was a child, I was 12 years old, I had been actively like cyber stalked and hacked by a number of people in the community, including Spider. There was also Pachuca who was involved with that, and Gallon was absolutely working alongside Pachuca while this was happening. Pachuca was hacking my websites and putting weird like images of him raping my cyber corpse, saying Pachuca is your daddy on my websites that he hacked, and Gallon and everybody thought that was so fucking hilarious. I was 12 years old. Now, keep in mind that Pachuca was actually 100% arrested for raping children. Within the next, I think it was 2 to 3 years, he was absolutely caught for using games to manipulate children and lure them in. Pachuca was showing us animal porn, and we obviously didn't want to see it, but he would like send us links to websites and then you would go to it and it was supposed to have some type of Graal content on it. And then instead it would be like weird satanic images and then animated GIFs of animal porn. It was really fucked up. Of course, people are going to deny it because they don't want you to know that this is what was happening under their watch and they allowed it to happen. They don't want to be exposed. So, you know, I'm going to tell you about it because nobody else is going to tell you. These people are perverts and they sexually violated us. They sexually violated and harassed children and stalked us and then stole everything from us. Gallon knew that was happening because Gallon and Pachuca were always in the chat rooms. There was a time when those two were absolutely the people in charge of this Zelda clone when it was Zelda Online, you know, and it was a virtual representation of A Link to the Past. They were absolutely side by side with each other. So Gallon knew what was happening. We were in chat rooms. And Pachuca was constantly sexually harassing me and saying fucked up stuff to me. Like, he would tell me he was going to rape me with a fucking cactus up the ass. Like, and for him to have then been discovered later as having actually lured children from games online and then raped them, I think you can see that these weren't just fucking jokes. There were also times when Pachuca, within the Graal management itself, alongside Gallon was fucking there. He was in those chat rooms. The first chat room for Graal was like an IRC channel that you could embed in a website. So if you went to like the Graal website, there was different ways you could get into the official Graal chat room. And this was just an IRC web applet that was embedded into a web page. And Gallon and Pachuca were in there all the fucking time, dude. All the time. Pachuca was constantly hacking. Gallon was hacking. They were manipulating people. Gallon had hacked his way into Mandy's computer. You can see in old records. He thought it was hilarious. He was snooping through Mandy's private files. And Mandy was just like some girl, right? Just some girl within the Graal community who's like, he's snooping through her private files and bragging about it to Pachuca. And Pachuca's like sending us links to his web pages that had animal porn on them. There were like animated GIFs of animal porn. He was always telling people he was going to rape them with something. Along with photographs he would take of him like raping people's corpses. Him and Azrael would do that all the time. And when I say corpses, I mean like your virtual avatar, not like real corpses. They would like rape your virtual avatar in the game and then say like Pachuca's your daddy or whatever it was, or rape, and then they would take photographs of that and post it online, which is really fucked up because there was a lot of children there. So But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because again, there was actual animal pornography of bestiality, humans having sex with animals on web pages that Pachuca would link and send to people as an admin, and Gallon was just sitting there right there alongside as Pachuca was saying he was going to rape children in the chat room, sending us links to websites with animal fucking porn on them, bestiality, human adults having sex with animals. Like, how does that happen? And then Gallon's hacking into children's computers. He's a pervert, you know? He's an absolute pervert. He allowed that to happen. All of this sexual abuse was 100% happening, and they all knew it was happening. Stephane knew it was happening. Unix Mad knew it was happening. And things got worse, right? Here's where things get worse. After Pachuca had left the community, not only did Pachuca get arrested for targeting minors to actually rape them in real life, and he had been arrested multiple times, Unix Mad and Gallon, and including Vangel and Stephane, never once warned anybody in the community about what happened. They never talked about the fact that we were being sexually abused. They all allowed it to happen. We were being sent bestiality porn as children and being told by the admins, the original admins of Zelda Online, that Unix Mad and Stephane had hired, quote unquote hired. They weren't for pay, they were volunteers. Pachuca was saying he was going to rape us up the ass, I should say. He was going to rape us, and he was sending us bestiality pornography to children on GraalOnline.com. Stephane and Unix Mad allowed this to happen. And there's more stuff that happened that Stephane and Unix Mad knew about and are absolutely complicit with. Unix Mad and Gallon, and including Vangel and Stephane, never once warned anybody in the community about what happened. They never talked about the fact that we were being sexually abused. They all allowed it to happen. They were all complicit with sexual abuse against children in this community, whether it was through Pachuca, other people, or their own staff. And they themselves were doing stupid stuff like stealing games, manipulating and molesting our content, right? Violating our underage minor content that they didn't pay for. Unix Mad and Stephane were doing that, and they also knew the sexual abuse was happening, and they never spoke out about it, and they didn't do anything about it. In fact, they allowed it to happen. They endorsed it. And I'll go more into that in a second. So the other thing that was going on was, so my computer had been hacked multiple times. They were constantly targeting me in this community because it was a worldwide, kind of network of developers, game developers, I should say, designers and developers. And I had my own website and I was making my own games. There's a whole nother video I should show about how Vangel was putting out weird posts trying to create fake projects that, they called New World, quote unquote, which was entirely advertised to children, asking children to send in applications so that, the best children could have their content featured and stolen by the quote unquote Graal Online team. And they said your payment for allowing us to take your content is that you can be proud knowing you were a member of a team and, all things for the glory of God, like using God and the desire for validation and adult, love and attention that children have, using that against them in order to manipulate kids to make games for them. So New World never got finished because they had stolen my games. But, the reason New World was created is because they wanted to have children create a game, other people's children, steal it, not pay for it, not get parental permission to own this, not legally obtain proper ownership of it, and then they were going to sell it. Instead, they ended up just robbing me because I wasn't on the New World team. I made my own games, right? So, there's that, and that's very real. That was also happening. But, back to the sexual abuse, there were people who were targeting me because, like I said, I was making my own games. So there were other people in the community who were targeting me, and they were stealing my files. Like, they were hacking my mother's computer, and then they were going through. Get this. This is how sick they were. I was 12 years old at the time that they had started, and they hacked me for years. So I was 12, I was 13, I was 14 years old when they had hacked me multiple times, and they were looking for weird stuff that they could humiliate a child for, right? So one of the things that they were looking for was through my childhood porn history, right? Because kids get curious and look at stuff online. I don't endorse porn and I wouldn't recommend it, but like, kids look at things that they shouldn't be looking at. And I was 12 and I had access to the internet and I looked at things that I shouldn't have been looking at. But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't fucking matter, because that doesn't give an adult the right to hack into a 12-year-old's computer and then snoop through this child's porn history and then start downloading the porn history that a child from a child's computer that they hacked into, that they broke into, that doesn't belong to them, and then take that porn history and then they provided it for download. And it was available on nixed.org for a very long time. And I mean everybody, abso-fucking-lutely everybody in the community knew this was happening. Vangel knew this was happening. The so-called godly Vangel, right? The Jesus freaks of Angel. He knew this was happening. Unixmad knew it was happening. Stephane knew it was happening. Galen knew it was happening. Everybody knew it was happening. That there were people, grown adults, hacking into my computer, a 12-year-old's computer, and downloading my sexual history, and then compiling it and putting it for download, and then talking about my sexual fetishes and sexualizing a child on their website. There were other websites, like with Viper from his weird, disgusting website that he called SG111 Sound Off, where he would say that I was Unixmad and Stephane's love boy, and they would like make weird stories and made up stories about me having sex with adults and stuff, even though I was literally 12 and I lived in America. It never happened, but they were constantly like sexually violating and sexualizing me. And I was 12. I was fucking 12. Tell me how that happens. Viper's never apologized for it. You know what Viper did? He went to the FBI and made up lies and tried to have me falsely arrested when we were adults. He cyberstalked me and defamed me. He wrote fake emails. Saying that I wrote those. He posts fake photographs about me. He's still stalking me to this day after he sexually assaulted me when I was a child by writing all kinds of gross pornographic stuff about me when I was a 12-year-old boy. And then somehow they hacked a photo of me from my computer because I was 12. They took a photo of me when I was 12 and started posting it around and posting it in articles talking about me, sexualizing me, and then sharing my internet porn history all over the fucking community. Everybody knew about it. Unixmad, Stephane knew about it. Nobody got in trouble for it. Nobody was banned or removed. They were just preying on me, stealing my content, and allowing people to sexually harass me. And then it gets worse because the admins themselves, besides Pachuca, there was another admin who Unixmad and Stephane promoted, and Vangel and Galen signed off on, who was saying sexual things about me after all of this had happened, after I had already been sexually violated as a fucking child by this entire community and tons of adults. I only knew Viper secondhand through a collaboration of internet file activity. That's all I knew of Viper. We were never friends. We never knew each other personally. I'm not friends with him. All I know is he's got a weird history of illegal activity and trying to smear people online and have them arrested. I was 12 when he was sitting there writing these weird sexual stories about me. And then he continued to harass me into my adulthood. To this day, he's pretending he's a victim because he's a fucking pervert. I mean, do you know what it's like to be 12 years old and to have hundreds of people snooping through your fucking porn history and talking about your private parts and talking about you sexually and harassing you and ridiculing you, sending you bestiality porn, hacking your files, calling you a gay, calling you a faggot, saying they want to rape you up the ass, grown adults who are actual pedophiles. And Stephane and Unixmad are just laughing their ass off behind the scenes, allowing this to happen. Everybody's signing off on it. They all joined in on it. Stephane and Unixmad are guilty. This was happening directly on GraalOnline.com. Sexualizing you, making up weird stuff, saying you have all these fetishes, talking about what gets you off. Like, it's disgusting. I was a kid. This whole community filled with adults And not just that, but everybody knew this was happening and nobody spoke out against it. Not Vangel, not Galen, not Unixmad, or Stephane. Not when Pachuca did it. Not when Viper did it. Not when Spider and his friends fucking hacked my computer, and then everybody was sharing my porn history around, talking about what a child does with his private parts, what a 12-year-old boy does with his private parts, snooping through his sexual history so they could see what I was fantasizing about. I was 12 fucking years old. And these grown adults are snooping through a 12-year-old's porn history and talking about his sexual fetishes and talking about his sexual body parts. It's disgusting. And then like asking other adults to join in, and they were ridiculing me. And then they weren't just ridiculing me. They were spreading my personal information around. My address, my phone number, talking about my mother, what my mother's finances were, doxing me, making me feel like, you know, at any moment somebody could break into my house and fucking rape me. They were doing this all the time. So one of the reasons I left the community for so long and never came back and spoke about it is because it's what happened to me was really, really fucked up and dark, and I just repressed it and I didn't want to deal with it. Now let's talk about the time situation. And keep in mind that time is a name. I'm not talking about time, the concept. I'm talking about time, quote unquote, time, the admin who is a total fucking freak. He's a pervert. Because this comes during all this that's been happening to me when I'm being sexually violated as a child and doxxed and sent porn and being told I'm going to be raped by pedophiles, known pedophiles on the Graal Online staff, on the Graal Online website, in Unixmad and Stephane's quote-unquote company. So Unixmad hires Time to be the manager over my games after they stole my games. And then Time was saying that I had like bird fetishes and foot fetishes and like boot fetishes. He said I had like bird fetishes and boot fetishes, that I was like fetishizing shoes and I had fetishized birds. And then he starts like adding birds to my games and like making it this big thing. And he calls them the antagonists, which is a perversion of my name, Antago, right? Like the name Antago actually means like male, a male name, because, you know, like a Spanish word that ends in O, right? Like A is feminine, O is masculine. So like Antago means anti-aging, right? Like it's a symbol of salvation for a boy. Antago is a male name that means anti-aging, like to be alive and filled with life. Instead, he's like saying my name means antagonist, and he's like creating these birds, calling them antagonists all over my levels, and then telling everybody it's because I have a weird bird fetish, and he thinks it's fucking hilarious. A grown-ass man talking about a 12-year-old child after they stole my games, perverting my name and adding birds everywhere because I was creating birds, but I was creating all kinds of stuff. What happened is they stole all of my content before I could make more stuff. And then whatever was there, they started saying I had all of these sexual fetishes for it, and they just took it to the extreme and started perverting it. So like if I had birds in the game, suddenly I was obsessed with birds, and I had a huge sexual a 12-year-old sexual fantasy for birds. And so he started making birds everywhere. A grown man fucking talking about a 12-year-old child, and Unixmad and Stephane was letting him do this. Yeah, add birds to his content and tell everybody he has a fucking bird fetish and call them antagonists and say that's what because that's what he has a fetish for, and his name is Antago, which we'll just say means antagonist. It's short for antagonist, and we'll just make a big joke about how this 12-year-old loves to, you know, wants to have sex with birds, and he's got boot fetishes. Like I had boots, I had birds, I had bommies. I was creating all kinds of stuff. I was also creating lizards. I was creating tons of different other types of creatures that never got into the games because they stole my games. So whatever I had in there, they started like saying I had all these sexual fetishes for them. I was 12 years old. Can you imagine being 12 fucking years old and having all of these adults, Unixmad fucking endorsing it, Stephane endorsing it, Galen fucking endorsing it? saying, as time is creating all these, perverting your content, vandalizing your content that they stole from you, and like exaggerating everything that you made and saying, oh, he's so obsessed. He loves to have sex with birds, and saying all kinds of weird, sick stuff about you, and then like smearing it all over your fucking content to make a huge sexual joke out of a fucking 12-year-old. It's disgusting. It's fucking sexual harassment. I was 12. It's child sexual fucking harassment. It's a form of sexual assault. It's disgusting. Anyways, I don't want to talk too much more about this. This is really disgusting to me. This is what they did. Stephane and Unix Mad are 100% child predators, and they hired pedophiles, and they endorsed it, and they allowed the sexual predation to take place in the community. And they uploaded content and had managers talking about how they were ridiculing and sexualizing a 12-year-old child in reference to bestiality. It's disgusting. They stole our games and then sexualized the children whose games they stole. Stephane and Unix Mad are some form of pedophile, 100%. 100%. They worked with pedophiles. They never spoke out against it. It was taking place on their website. We were being sexually targeted. We were being sent porn through GraalOnline.com, through their admins. They never spoke out against it. They never stood up for us. They stole from us so that we could be further victimized. They endorsed people in the community who were sexualizing us, and they allowed managers to sexualize us and to steal our content and pervert it. Stephane and Unix Mad did this. They are fucking child predators, not just in the piracy sense, but also sexual.